Now let the beat ride.
Welcome everybody to High Chicago. I know it looks a little weird. It's only two of us today. Sean and JV
Oh well,
couldn't join us, so it's just gonna be me and Mary Claire. But how you
they're
doing
out
today,
sick.
Mary?
I'm doing good. I'm actually having a very lively weekend, and I'm actually getting ready to go mudding tonight. So
Mudding, that is the
yeah,
countryest shit I've ever heard.
it's so fun.
I'm sure it
So
is.
fun.
I've
Strap a
seen.
cooler to the back of the four wheeler and go riding. It's fun. Get
Oh my
dirty.
god. You used to be a city girl. What happened to you?
Correction. I was never a city girl. Never. I was
Really?
just having my moments here and there, but yeah, no.
All
Mm.
right. Well, have fun with
How are
that.
you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna talk about online dating. So one of the oh shit. Sorry, my microphone. Let me move this cord so that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things going
Sean
on
ain't never
today.
gonna let us do that.
No. One of the biggest things going on today is COVID, as you know, and it's really hard to meet people. So, one of the most viable ways to do so is through online dating. And it's estimated that about 40% of heterosexual relationships start online. And it's even higher for those in same sex relationships. So, my question I want to start off with is online dating. Do you think it is a viable option? Or do you think that maybe it's a bit overused and we should continue to use the old ways of meeting people in person or through friends?
Hmm. I mean, I am totally for online dating. I mean, that's how me and Roosevelt met. I think it's a great method of meeting people because you get to skip a lot of steps. But ultimately, I mean, I think it just depends on the person. Like some people overuse online looking, and other people, like, they purely cannot do it through a screen. Like they've got to be in person because they're not good at describing themselves. So, I mean, I don't know how you are. I know you've had your experience with online as well, but like for me, I like it because I can read about a person, how they project themselves, and then I have the opportunity to meet them and see if it matches up. So I kind of like it.
I like online dating, but I do think that it has its pros and cons. Like, pros are
Yeah.
you get to meet a lot of people very quickly through online bios, but there is opportunity for those people to lie. Now, I don't know about how it is on your side, but I know from the male perspective, it's a lot. There are a lot of scam profiles you find on a lot of
Yeah.
these websites. And for
Yeah.
men, it feels like one out of every three profiles is a scam profile when it comes
I
to
feel
female
like it's I
profiles.
feel like that's the same on my end. Like when I when I first started online dating, like I looked at a lot of profiles, and every once in a while I could tell one wouldn't match up because their photo and their bio would be great, and then I'd start messaging them and I'm like, it's not adding up. Bye. But I mean, I think when I did online date for like a 2 month period, I met up with maybe, I would say, like 6 or 7 of those people, and about 4 of them were pretty accurate. Like I enjoyed my time with them,
Hmm.
and one of them I'm currently with still,
That's
and
so
we're
nice.
now over a year. So
Which that does bring me to my next point about talking about meeting up in person.
yeah.
So I've done online dating for two, the past 4 months or three
Uh-huh.
months. Was it October? Yeah, past 3 or 4 months, and I've probably met 5 or 6 people in
Oh
person.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
not bad.
I know, right? But the thing that I've noticed is there are women who will post only neck up photos. Those are the ones that I meet in person, and it's it's sort of a revelation. It feels like I've never met this person before, even though I've talked to them online, I've seen their photos online, but they're hiding essentially everything from here down. You don't know what any of that looks like, and it's jarring in person, because I did meet a person who, like, she's really pretty, all that good stuff, but she knows how to work the angles. I'll just say that much.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's my biggest fear as a woman, being the profile being looked at. So I don't know how other people or other women think when they make their profiles, but when I was going through the process, I was like, all I know is the next person I'm with, I want them to fully love all of me. So I made sure I had full body photos, I had side photos. Shoot, I made sure that out of my, I think you get like 5 max photos that you can put up. I made sure each one was a different type of angle so that you could see all of me. And I made sure they weren't all like, you know, cropped and filtered and all that stuff, because I really didn't want to get on a date and then a guy be like, oh, you look nothing like your profile, bye, because I would have been humiliated, you know. So why would I do that to myself? But I don't know. I do see it happen though, especially with guys as well. It's not just girls. So I will say that much.
Yeah. My thing that I've been doing more recently is making sure that I have full body photos. Because one of the harder things about it is I'm on the larger side, as you guys all know. It is a lot harder to find someone to date on these apps or these websites when you are on the larger side, which why there are more apps that cater towards people of my size. And those are the ones that I found I have the most success on.
Probably maybe because there's that previous knowledge of, you know, not trying to hide anything and stuff like that. You kind of know
what to expect at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like,
we hope.
Speaking of, like, what apps do you think have the best success rate for you? So had the best success rate?
Well, I mean, with my knowledge going in, like when I was in college and stuff, that's when like Tinder was a big hit. And I had somebody explain it to me. They were like, you know, Tinder and I forget the names of the other ones, but it was Tinder
Bumble,
and
maybe.
No. Bumble's the one I like to use, but it was Tinder and another one, and they were like, people only use those if they were trying to get some tonight, make a quickie, maybe a regular like meetup type thing, and then Bumble was supposed to be like, you know, slightly more serious, and then any website that requires a membership is like, okay, you're trying to find a husband or a wife. Right. It's like an investment.
Yeah,
so
you went to college in 2012, right?
Yeah.
So Tinder was just starting up at that time. Tinder wasn't an option for me when I was younger. So.
But I mean, I knew people in college that they'd be bored on a Friday night and they'd be like, let's hop on Tinder and see who I could find tonight. And then before I knew it, it'd be like, okay, they just fucked that person and said goodbye. Like that's how easy it was to do it on there. And I mean, I know we're talking about like heterosexual relationships, but I've met girls on Bumble as well. And I now have 2 successful friendships off of there, and it's like amazing. So it really does work a multitude of situations. So
I think things like Tinder and Bumble are more for your traditional attractives. I'm going to get into that a little bit.
Interesting.
Because I have had a Bumble account for 3 months and a Tinder account for 3 months. I've met 0 people off of those apps.
Really?
And one of the things about Bumble is you match and the woman has to initiate the conversation, right?
Yep.
I've matched 4 times with someone, and only 1 time has someone actually responded and actually like reached out and sent a message.
Oh wow.
So
wow.
It's good for the woman. I say Bumble, it's definitely good if you're a woman. For a man, unless you're, you know, everything that woman's looking for, you're probably not going to get a response, even if you do match. That's just kind of one of the weird things about that.
Well, I don't know. I think maybe women are also being more careful too, because even when I was on Bumble, I think there were so many guys I matched with, and I'm like, this is weird. Like I was like, this is new territory for me. How am I supposed to have 10 different conversations with 10 different guys, you know? And so I would try, and I would say like 7 times out of 10, it was like, send me nudes or here's
Oh
some
my
dick pics. And
goodness.
I'm like,
Wow.
oh my goodness, this is too much. I was like, I don't know what belongs where. So at that point, you know, what I think after you send the first question set to them and you realize like, what does this person want from me, you can then purge or keep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. One of the apps that I use a bunch, and it's the one, like I said, it's the one I've had the most success with, is Woo Plus, which is for, I think they
Whoop.
advertise themselves as an app for curvy singles,
Mm.
which that one has been the one I've had the most success with. It's also where I met the girl who's was only neck up, which is it's sort of weird. Like in that space where you should be comfortable to show your body because it is one that
Yeah.
caters to that type of body set. Why would you not want to show the rest of your body? No one's gonna be like,
I
"Oh, you're
would
fat" on this app's website for fat people.
Well, I would think at that point, then it's not just about being fat to a person. They're just extremely self-conscious, maybe. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I have moments all the time where I'm like, you know what, y'all are getting neck up because I'm not feeling confident today. You know, it
Mm.
could be the day of the week, it could be a regular thing for the person. You just never know. But I would think in that situation when like you're already considered like in a safe place, that maybe there's more to know about that person. You know.
Okay. Yeah. See, I
That would have
never
been
thought
a
about
great
that.
question to ask her on your date, believe
Why
it or
are all
not.
your pictures only neck up?
No, I'm just,
Or
hey, this is a safe place. Like, can I ask you why? Do you feel intimidated posting a full body picture? You know, like something like that.
Right,
I don't
okay.
know. I'm an honest woman, so I like when people ask me like very, very deep, honest questions. Some people do get offended. You do have to test waters with them, but I don't know. I met one guy and I knew nothing about him. And then when I got to his house, I found out he was like a millionaire. And I was like, oh, this
Oh.
is not comfortable. And then he gave me a tour of his whole house. And there was like 7 bedrooms. And it was too much for me. And I was like, bro, this is like being on MTV Cribs for me. I was like, I grew up in a trailer, a double wide trailer. And he was like, oh. I was like, I can't do this. I gotta
So,
bye.
you know what? That actually brings up a good point. I think a lot of these websites do have people put their occupation and their
Yeah.
their income levels or whatever. Do you think that that's too
Wow.
personal, or is that something you think would have been useful for you, especially coming from that situation where you ran into a guy whose monetary wealth was
I
pretty?
would say no. I don't think it's too personal, only because on Bumble, I choose not to disclose my job or how much I make or anything. So that just shows, that doesn't matter to me. Whereas somebody who it might matter to, like they might list more details because they're letting people know, like, hey, like this is what I'm all about. Let me know what you're all about, type of thing. So I think if it's a requirement, then yeah, that's a little too much. But if it's optional, then it just gives people that extra length of, what is this person about?
Okay.
What about you? What do you think about that?
For me, it's something that gives an extra layer of depth to the person, but you can run into those problems where you run into someone who's just trying to scam you. And they see that you're in that income level where I think it stops at like 150 plus or something like that, 150K plus. It's like you're in that income level where money is essentially very disposable for you, and people will try to take advantage of that. But on the other hand, when you're in someone who's in that middle class range, it feels like you can meet other middle class singles and they'll be
Yeah.
sort of on that same wavelength.
Well, and to add to that, when I met that guy, he totally was, asking me all these questions, probing me to get answers. And I just stopped him at one point And I was like, if you're wondering if I'm after your money, the answer is no. I was like, I like to make my own money. And he was like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, can I offer you a drink? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he's like pouring this drink, and I'm laughing because I was like, I've never seen a bottle that sparkly before. And he's like going on and on about, he's like, most women I meet, they find out information about me and then they kind of just want me to buy them things or take them out on nice dates. And I told him, I was like, well, this is literally the first time meeting you. So I'm just letting you know, that's not my expectation. And then he hands me the drink and I go, oh, what are we drinking? And he's like, oh, this is my favorite Jack. And he's like, it's aged and it's like $150 a bottle. And I was like, oh my God, I'm uncomfortable. I'm extremely uncomfortable.
Do you feel like you had to meet up to his like expectations when you were there? Was it like a nervous energy?
Honestly, that date probably would have went different, but it ended up being extremely awkward because I obviously live in a very small world nowadays. And when I got on this date, me and him started talking about a person, and the person seemed extremely similar. And then we both stopped each other and we're like, wait, what's this person's name? And we found out we were talking about the same person. And it was really weird. And so basically I had found out that somebody I was friends with, he had dated before. And then I was just like, I really don't want to be here.
Yeah, you don't want to cross
So,
streams.
had that not happened, we probably would have had a second date, maybe. I don't know. He was a really nice guy, but sometimes when other people tend to know who the person is, they are biased and they're like, no, don't date that person. They're a dirtbag. And I'm like, well, that's not fair judgment. Like, me, like I give everybody opportunity. I'm like, you don't know their situation. But I had my girlfriend screaming at me and telling me, go, leave right now. And he was like, please stay. I really want to meet you again. And I felt so terrible. By the end of the day, I was just like, I don't know what decisions to make. But yeah, it was messy.
So
it was messy.
Here's a question I have for you. And it's a question I have like essentially anytime I engage into conversations with people online. How long do you have to be conversing with this person before you're comfortable enough to meet them in person?
Ooh. I'd say depending maybe on how the questions are going, but I mean, I've gone a couple days talking to somebody before I met up with them. Whereas with Roosevelt, we were literally talking for maybe 10 minutes and he was like, so when can I meet you? Like, how long are you going to make me wait to ask you for your number? And I was like, wow, I like this guy. He's not wasting no time. I'm like, yeah, let's go out tonight.
So that's an interesting one because for me, I've met people after 3 days of talking to them. Met them after weeks of talking. Like I've met them the same day as well. So there's like different like spectrum. There's a spectrum of ways that I've met people.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times I'll stumble across profiles and they're like strongly like, hey, don't ask me like after we've been talking for 2 days for my number, or I don't.
It's like, what?
After we started talking, and it's like, I understand that this is online dating and there's an increased chance for catfishing or scamming or dangerous situations. But at the same time, before online dating was even a thing,
you would be in person. So what's the point of waiting?
So yeah, it's a catch-22 in that situation.
I don't know. I think for some people, they're like, they consider me like thirsty because I could literally go 10 minutes talking to somebody and then be like, hey, do you want to go grab lunch so that we can finish this conversation? Or, I'm just that type of person. That's who I am. I love talking to people. I love meeting them. And I'm very upfront when I was on the online dating, like I even at one point told the guy, I don't even care if this ends up not being a serious relationship. Like I could see myself being friends with you. So I wouldn't, because he was very big about taking things slow. He had just got out of a serious relationship. I'm like, I totally respect that. I'm like, we can take some time, but even if we just ended up being friends, I'm fine with that too. Everyone could use a friend. So I think it really does depend on the person and what kind of questions they're asking and what they're hoping to get out of it. Because if you're hoping to go into the online dating world and not meet somebody for maybe a couple months into talking, like, whoa,
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's pen
That's
pal.
kind of
That's pen
hard.
pal stuff.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask this question, and I don't want to leave before we ask this question. So
Ooh.
for you, why did you choose to go the online dating route? And I'll tell
I'm
you
gonna have to
why
think
from there.
back. Well, so as you know, my relationship that I was in, I was with that person for 10 years and it was
Hmm.
pretty serious. So when I got to the point where I moved out and I was on my own, I was like, I really do thrive when I have a companion, a partner, it's like somebody by my side I can constantly talk to. Plus, I don't have any family here in Texas and I don't hardly have any friends. So that was mainly why I chose to dive into online dating because if I had at least friends here, it would be much easier to like, hey, let's go out tonight. And if I meet somebody while I'm on the way, I meet somebody, like some people are like, oh, Mary, if I were you, I would have just gone to a bar by myself. I'm like, no, that's setting yourself up for failure. I'm not going to do that. So for me, it was access to information, I guess, because here in Texas, it's like if you want to go downtown and go to some bars by yourself, you don't know what you're going to get. And for me, that's a bit overwhelming. Like I need to kind of organize things. At least when you're out with other people, if you see a cute guy across the room, you can sit there and contemplate how you're going to do this and talk it out with the person next to you. But I don't know. I guess that's why I chose online dating. So I was like, well, if I can be a little bit more specific and I can use my time wisely. So,
All right. So
how about you?
for me, it was because it's harder to meet people when you're in the industry that I'm in. So where I work at is in logistics and warehouse distribution, those type of places. Uh, those tend to be something like 90% male dominated.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who were female were all people who were my superiors. So the easier way to meet people was to either go out, but the problem is people who were my friends who were actually in the area were Sean and you had Larry, both of whom are currently married and had a
Mm.
person that they were with at the time as well. So it's kind of hard to go out with them and sort of do the whole single thing. So the easier route for me was to go into online
So
dating.
wait, I'm curious. You said people in your industry, it's hard for them to what, date or to
It's hard
find
to
like,
find someone to date because it is so male dominated.
oh, you're saying like you can't really find people in your workplace if you were
Yeah.
interested. Got it.
And
Okay.
then more recently I was in management, so it wasn't like I could date someone at that job anyway, and I don't meet
Yeah.
anybody outside of work.
People have asked me that too. They're like, have you thought about anyone you work with? But for me, that's uncomfortable, especially
Hmm.
because I try to hold myself as a very independent woman. Like I take care of things myself to a certain extent. And so I feel like it gets really weird when I'm like, I don't think I could date anyone I worked with or work in the same company with, but I don't know. Now, maybe if this person worked in the same job as me, but farther away, but at that point, I'm no longer interested, right? Because I don't want to do long distance. I want
Right.
somebody who's like very accessible. And so I think that's interesting that you brought that up because being a manager, I would never want to date anyone who's on the level of like I've got to boss them around or anything because I don't want to make them uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I don't know. But for me, I'm more interested. I want somebody in a different type of career so that I can talk with them about how different their life is. I'm not one of those, oh, they've got to be extremely similar to me in that point.
Yeah. I think I dated someone once that I worked with, but the thing about it is she left like the next week and we were still dating
So
after that. So we were but that situation is so rare. Again, like I said, in the industry I work in, she was like one of maybe 15 female employees at a job that had over 150 employees.
um,
So it's really
yeah, and
hard.
I work in a female dominant industry. So um
Yeah.
honestly, the few males that I come across are either like it's their very first job or they've been there their whole life. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
And oh, and that sort of ties back into the episode we had about the dating younger, the 10 years dating younger. You probably find that a lot in your job where it's 18, 19-year-old males that you're running into.
Yeah, actually, they can start as young as 16 in my job,
Oh
and I
my.
do get a lot of 16-year-olds. So, me being what I'm going to be 27 this year. Sometimes when I'm at work, though, I feel more of like a mom boss. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I've got to nurture this person. Sometimes this is their first job, sometimes this is their more serious first job. So I don't know. I just don't ever look at it as could I potentially date this person, but that's just me.
And then one final question. Has there ever been a time where you talked to someone online and you were extremely nervous about meeting that person in person? And how did you go about it?
Nervous. Well, I would say my very first online date, I was extremely nervous for. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, don't get murdered. Put your location on. Text me when you get there." I was like, "Oh my God, is it that serious? Like, did people have that many bad experiences? Like, why would it be any different if I met the guy in a bar late night on a Friday and I know nothing about him versus knowing a little bit about this person and meeting up with them in the middle of the day? I don't know." But yeah, the very first guy I met up with, he seemed very nice. He was a med student. He was going to be a doctor. He was only 2 semesters away from getting his white coat or whatever.
Nice.
And I was really nervous. I'm like, man, he's really
Going
up there,
places.
and I feel all the way down here, and I'm lonely. So I was very, very nervous, and I told him, I said, "Hey, before we go in the restaurant, like, do you want to just walk around outside a little bit and talk?" And we did, and then he was more like, "No, I want to go in the restaurant. I want to have a drink." He ended up being the rudest guy I've ever gone on a date with, and he was so boring. I was just like, I will never talk to you ever again. So yeah, and that I think was more nerve wracking is coming up with a plan of how are you going to exit the date. Because
Yeah.
this guy wanted a kiss, this guy
That,
wanted to feel up, and I was like, I want to go.
and I
So
do fear because I have friends that I've also met online, and I kind of fear for them when they're telling me they're gonna go meet a person, especially when I know my gender and they are a little more aggressive. They are sexually driven, and if you're someone who's maybe a little bit on the smaller side, maybe haven't had self-defense classes, don't know how to defend for yourself, it's a little bit of a scary proposition. My first online date, I was super nervous as well.
yeah.
Ended up working out um, very well, but no longer together. And the sort of it was we talked for a very long time before ever meeting up. Might have been like 4 or 5 months, like of
Wow.
talking.
Wow.
But again, it
That's
was my
long.
first online dating experience, so it was like I didn't at the time I didn't think that it was anything out of the norm. But now, if I'm like talking to you for a month and I ask you on a date and you're like, no, I don't want to meet up, I'm probably gonna stop talking to you.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because back when I was in grade school and high school, when I met my ex, uh, we talked online so long, even though we saw each other on a daily basis.
Oh
And
my.
it took me so much courage to go up to him and be like, "Hi, I'm the person you've been talking to,"
Oh
like,
my goodness.
isn't that weird? Like
Yeah.
most people probably don't really realize, like, okay, like I've been in a relationship with that person 10 years, but a lot of them never knew how we met. And, now that I think back on it, I think me doing the online dating after that relationship ended, it just taught me, like, I think I work better when I get to see the person in both ways, but more importantly in person, because I waited so long to have an in-person interaction with him.
Mhm.
And then by that time, I learned like how shy and how timid he really was. And I learned to accept it and love it, which is fine. You know, I wasn't bugging about it, but I did learn about myself. Like maybe this time around when I'm meeting people, I should really see how they are in person to see if they're
Mhm.
a different reflection. So
Yeah.
I
You
did
can
learn
talk
from it,
online.
but
You can talk
it was
online
definitely
forever.
good.
You
Huh?
can talk online forever, but until you meet that person and like actually interact with
Yeah.
that person, feel their body language out, you never know what they're
Mhm.
actually like.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened with me when I was in high school, and I finally decided to add that person on Facebook and send him a message, and before you knew it, it was here's my phone number, let's continue this texting. And then I look back and I'm like, why did it take us like 4 or 5 months of talking on Facebook to then be like, hey, want to go on a date and talk in person? But man, I'm like, I was in high school. I was so outgoing.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. And
You
with
live
the
and you
way,
learn, right?
it's true. And with the way the world's going, online dating is going to continue to thrive. There's so many apps, so many ways to meet people online. All right, so we're gonna finish with our final thoughts. Mary, floor is yours.
My final thought is actually a final question.
All right.
Do you think in the online dating world that it's worth paying for a monthly subscription type of deal? Or do you think all of it should be free?
So for me, I pay, so I don't have a problem paying. Um, I think I sort of look at it this way. For a long time, and I'm gonna relate this to consoles. For a long time, PlayStation's online community was free, and Xbox online community you had to pay for. What you would find is there are people who are more serious on the Xbox online community, and it's the exact same when it comes to the dating community. The people who are paying for it, they're actually trying to find someone. People who might use it for free, they're just trying to see how this works out. So they're less focused. It feels that they're less focused than the people who are actually paying for those. So I think
Wow.
there should be that separation still.
Okay.
My final thoughts. I don't really have any. Yeah, this was a good conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Um,
Not your typical online dating conversation, I think.
no, yeah, it's good to learn a little more about Mary Claire. That she was on
Likewise.
Tinder early. She was on Bumble early. She was an early adopter.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I am. Believe it or not, I mean, I'm not that sex savvy, but I do at least get my knowledge in
there you
there.
go. All
So.
right. Let's take us home. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider subscribing and clicking that bell so you can always know when the latest episode is available. Also, please let us know what you think about the topic by leaving your comments below. We read every single one. Don't forget to look us up on your favorite podcast site that includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and anywhere else you consume podcasts. Our website is linked below. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HiChicago312. And until next time,
Man, let the beat.
peace.
Hey.